Right then, we're going to start painting the gold today on this lady, or in this session I should say. And I've gone ahead and base coated her with a mix of sort of 90% black red and a little touch of medium rust. So I want the sort of darkness of the brick red and the reddish brown, but I want some of this orangey tone as well. We're going to make this a nice sort of orangey gold. So I've gone ahead and painted the first all over with the black red and medium orange coat. So the first, what I would call this mid-tone, what I want to do here is really try to establish just areas of where the highlights are going to be. So we've got this mix now which is more medium rust with just a touch of the red black in it. So when I'm looking at this, where our light's coming from, I could see there's going to be a big sort of shiny area here. So this is what I'm thinking here. So this corner, and going in, because of the shape of this neckwear, I'm sort of thinking that it's gonna go thinner towards like a sort of almost a pyramid shape. So something like this. So getting wider near the edges, the front edge, which is facing the light. We're going to come in and highlight, do a lot of line highlighting later with brighter colours. But with this layer here, I just really want to establish where my light areas and my sparkly areas, more importantly, are going to be. Because this is what's going to make our effect of this Gold NMM actually work. Now, when we do NMM, what makes it so convincing when people paint it is getting a very high contrast from dark to light. But these light areas step up in very small areas. So they're very small, shiny blocks of light, which gives the effect of the metal is actually shining. So we're going to leave quite a bit of that black-red mix showing through, and we want to establish these really nice brighter areas, and we're going to go a lot brighter in a minute. This is just the mid-tone where we're trying to set our first lot of lights. So again, what I keep doing here, you'll notice, is I paint the areas. I'm using fairly thin paint here. It's fairly nicely thinned down. And what I do is I'm painting a layer or two, or a layer at a time. And then when it dries, I go back and assess how bright it is. If I feel it needs to be brighter, I just add more layers. So I don't immediately add lighter paint. This paint will go lighter and lighter the more layers I add to it. So you have to get your values in the layer that you want by adding more layers. And then we get a nice smooth blend, and it leaves us less work to do later if we can get this on a little bit smoother. I don't take this approach with everything, because as you've seen already, sometimes I will paint with thicker paint, heavier, more opacity, just to get the areas mapped in, because sometimes I feel like I'll be able to blend those in easier later. But other things, I take this approach of thinner paint and more layers. It really varies across different areas and different colours. Excuse me. So the converse of this is we're going to have maybe a brighter area here, but a bit smaller, because this is now working away from our light source. So we want to leave some of that black red showing in certain areas, but we want to very much try and map out a smaller highlight zone there, and then we probably have one just at the tip of the neck part up here. So these ones are not going to be as bright as the ones that are more facing the light, which is on the front part of her neck piece. Right, so I've gone ahead and put all the mid-tone all over where I'm going to want it for the gold now. So to get that yellowy gold look, we're going to start adding in Sahara yellow. So I've got a mix on my palette now, which is my previous mix, which is mainly medium rust, and quite a bit, I'd say a good 50% of this Sahara yellow. So we're going to try and get this just more bright spots, near the center of these areas we've already put in. And what this will do, this is going to give us those really nice golden areas in these metallic parts. And again, this is fairly thin paint, and we can do some of the edge highlighting as well here. But we do want to be getting these areas smaller and smaller now. So the other key with NMM is the highlights need to be very small and very bright. So we're starting to see a little bit more of a golden look in this now. Certainly a more yellowy look, which is what we want. But it's still quite a dullish sort of yellow. We've not hit that real brightness yet, which we're going to in a second. So that's the sort of area we want to really push for one of our brightest spots. And this front edge here, this is going to be the bit that's closest to the light. So this is going to be our main shiny spot right there. And again, what we do is if it's not bright enough, we just go and add more layers to build up the opacity. Right, we're going to come in with another highlight now, and this is going to be pretty much pure Sahara yellow. So we've got to keep this very small and very focused just in certain areas this time. We don't want to be overdoing this highlight, because this is meant to really show those bright spots in the metallics. So we really want to focus this to very small areas. This very small area of a bright spot. And this is where the reader is going to pick up that shine that we're looking for in the gold. And what we're going to do here, we're going to try and just outline these edges as we go now. So I want to try and get a little highlight on some of these edges to make them stand out. So now she's looking a little bit shinier. But like I say, this is not, I'm not really going for an ultra bright gold here because of the character she is. We know she's like risen from the grave. Her armor's going to be, it's going to be old. She's not going to be sort of kept in the best state, I would have thought. So I'm not painting her in really bright yellowy golds. This is more of a dull gold. And I am painting her as sort of like almost in like a night scene with the way the lights and the shadows are working. And sort of not as big and bright around this side. There's going to be those light spots, light flashes, but they're not going to be as big as the other side of this neck. Because the edges usually catch light, and we want them to show as, being sharp, shiny edges. Right, we're kind of come in with could be the final highlight. We might go one more yet. But we really want to establish these bright, shiny areas. So we've got to add some more whitish colours to this yellow to get a higher value. And I'm going to use pale yellow, which is, it's very much a yellow, but it's got a lot of white in it. So the value is a lot higher than the Sahara yellow. So this is going to add that brightness we need to hopefully make these little shiny spots just have a little bit more bling to them. So again, we've got quite thin paint here, and we just want to touch these few areas to get this sort of bright tone. And if we go a little bit too much with these, we can always glaze it back, which is something I'll probably do anyway, because white colours tend to go on a little bit more stark, and we get like a little bit more of a rough look with whitish colours. But we're really just trying to paint little tiny bits now to give those final bright spot of highlight. I'll try and add some to these edges. When I'm doing these sort of layers here, I want very little paint on the brush. So I'm not overloading my brush when I'm adding these layers, because I want to paint very small, thin areas. And again, if it's not the brightness where we want it, we'll just come in with more layers and just ramp up the intensity and the opacity. So we're starting to get now, these areas are starting to have that little bit more shine to them. And we can add some little nicks and scratches as well with this colour. Right then, so we're on to like the final highlights now, and we're going to go with pure pale yellow. Now these highlights have got to be very small, very sort of more like dots of paint that we're going to try and add. So we want very little on the brush, and we really want to try and get these little points of light, and they're going to help this just put those last bits of sparkle into the paint. It's very important not to overdo these stages, because if you go too far, you'll really end up by losing all the yellowy colour. And we don't want to do that. So we're just painting these little dots just in little areas where we think there's going to be that little bit of a shine. And this stage seems to make, it makes a huge difference in metallics. Just adds those lovely little reflection points that will get picked up by the eye because they're so bright. And we can put some little points as well in the shadowy parts because light will get picked up on those points too. We just get these nice little really shiny spots which are just going to finish this paint job off nicely on this gold. Right then, we're going to be painting the gems. Now, I've just base coated them in this beautiful king purple with a touch of black on it. And we're going to go in with the first lights on this, which is going to be with just the neat king purple. Now, the way we're going to do gems, because the light's coming from this front direction, we're going to get a small light here, but the most of the light is going to be around the bottom left hand side. And these are very small, so we're just going to take our time. And we're just sort of really laying down and sort of setting up our light points at the moment. Right, so I've added pale yellow in again to this purple colour, because obviously purple and yellow are perfect complements to each other. And this is not a true, well, violet and yellow are, but this is purple. But we actually get a nice pinky purple tone now with this colour. So now we want to really focus on getting this bigger light underneath these gems, and then this much smaller light on the top. Then we'll get more and more lights on this sort of bottom left hand corner. Right, so just more pale yellow going in now. So we're just trying to get these brighter and brighter. And we want to really reduce these highlights on the top area now. Right, another highlight, just more pale yellow has been added. Right, the final highlight on these, and I've added ivory to the palette and mixed that in, so this is going to look quite light this time, but we just want some very bright spots. I'm just trying to get this little sort of bling effect, a bit like when we did the gold, of just a little couple of shiny spots. So I've just mixed up a glaze of our original purple colour, which is very, very thin, as you can see. And I'm just going to glaze over these, trying to push it to the bottom so I get a bit more colour over the more stark whitey bits. This will just help to blend those in. And then afterwards we'll come back with a very bright dot highlight in a couple of places, which will give them that shine that we're looking for. Alright guys, so we're just going to add some little dots now. We've got pure ivory on the palette, and we really just want some tiny little dots in a few places.